What's up guys, I'm Dave. Have you ever heard of the CAGED system? So I'm going to teach you about it a little bit. We take one of the chords, right? C, A, G, E, or D. These open chords we should know. C, A, G, E, D. Right? Now you can move these shapes upward to play different chords. Thus you have bar chords. You've probably heard of bar chords. One of the most common ones we'll have in the beginning is typically the F chord. Alright, and then maybe a B minor chord. Very common because they seem to be within the progression, the 1, 4, 5, 6, if you know what that is. In the key of C, you have F as the 4. In other words, you have the key of C, right? 1, 2, 3, 4. F chord is built off that. It's going to be a major 4. And then likewise, the key of D is very common. And you have a B minor as your 6th chord in the key of D. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Alright? That's a B minor chord in a different position right there, which we'll get to. So what would be the next step with understanding how this system works? Alright, let's start with the C chord, right? Now, you have your A chord, alright? How much higher is C than A? I'm going to give you a hint. We have open A string right here, 5th string. 1 whole step to B, half step to C, alright? So if I take my A shape, that means I theoretically can bring it up 3 frets, a whole step and a half step, and I now have a C chord. This is a bar chord. You're going to have some finger strength for this, but this is your next step if you are a beginner guitarist or just a beginning intermediate guitarist, understanding how this system works. Because typically we're not going to play the whole chord unless you're a rhythm guitarist, which it's recommended you just use a capo at that point so that you can do more variations and stuff. Sometimes it can be tricky to play bar chords variations if you're using the whole chord in one place at a time. However, once you get a little more upper intermediate, we're going to learn about some neo soul and gospel music in which creating variations and modifications with these bar chords is going to be seemingly more easy and a lot more common. So an example, you can go to your A shape and play C chord. Now follow the letters in CAGED, C, A, G. Alright, well G is, how much higher is C than G? Better yet, we can take our A shape, right? Alright, now G is the bass note, 3rd fret. Now, if we're going through the C major scale, and then we go from here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So G is the 5th in the C major scale. If I take my G chord, then I should be able to bring all of this up, right, to A, to B, to C, right here. I bring it up 5 frets. But look at this here. This is pretty wild to play, especially if you're just getting used to bar chords for starters, right? So typically what we do is we're going to start rearranging this shape, right? We begin by playing an inversion typically. And what am I doing differently here? I'm not playing the root note anymore. This is going to be common in a lot of upper music with extensions, chord extensions. We look at 7th chords, 9th chords, 11th chords. Chords that are common in jazz, neo soul. We can remove the root bass note and let a bass player play that, or a rhythm guitarist play it. And we can start creating more extensions and have more creativity or detail on top of a chord. So if we take this shape, if I remove that C note right there on the 8th fret of the 6th string, the bass note now becomes this E note right here on the 5th string, 7th fret. And what's the relationship? And what is the E in that C chord? Well, C is the 1, and E is going to be the 3. So we're playing the 3 in the bass, which means we have what's called an inversion. And this is going to be a first inversion. A first inversion is when you play the 3 in the bass instead of having the root note, the C, in the bass now. So that is an option right there. You can play your G shape, rearranging your fingers right here, instead of playing G with the last 3 fingers, going up to the 8th fret with the 3rd finger and then barring the 5th fret, all right, we now have the option of placing our 3rd finger on the 3, the E note right there, 7th fret, 5th string, and then reinforcing the bar with our 2nd finger a little bit. So we have more strength now. It's a lot more reasonable when you're getting used to it, especially on the acoustic guitar where it's a little more difficult than the electric. You might not have a problem on the electric guitar playing a full G chord. But also another thing is, another variation, you could play the G in the bass. You could play not an inversion, and you could stop playing the chord up to the 2nd string right here. And that's still a G chord, right? Or a C chord, because if you play your G chord right here, you can play these strings and you have the 3 notes, the G, the B, and the D in the top 5 strings. G, B, D. And then you have an additional G and B. Additional 1 and 3. Alright? You don't need that extra 1 note, that G. You don't need it. And in fact, if you play the open E right there, that's adding the 6th note. What do I mean by that? Well, the 6th, right? If you're in 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, E. Alright? So now what you could do is bring it up to the 5th fret, bar it, have your pinky play the 8th fret of the 6th string, your 3rd finger play the 7th fret of the 5th string, and then barring the entire 5th fret with your 1st and 2nd finger. And you have a nice modification right there. You have the 6 in addition to your major chord. So that would be a C6 technically now. Alright? Or you could just fiddle around with the top 5 strings and have the full chord. But I think this variation could work. And then of course, once you get the hang of doing these 2 examples right here, then you can start playing a little more variations. I like playing the 3 in the bass personally because you have the ability to do some modifications there with your pinky, right? Whereas if I rearrange now, and this is a little tricky if you're lower intermediate beginner, but you can place your 3rd and 2nd finger and then bar with the 1st finger, which requires a little more strength, but then you have the ability to play some variations there. That's why it's cool to get the hang of playing the full chord. Until then, you can try either one of those options and shapes right there. So moving on, what's next? C, A, G, E. Alright, well, we have our E chord, right? Play it with your last 3 fingers because we're going to bring it up. Ready? We're going to go, think E to C. How do we get there? Let's go step at a time, right? So half step to the next letter named F, whole step to G, whole step to A, whole step to B, half step to C right here. We're barring our 8th fret, all right? We have the E shape brought all the way up now to the 8th fret. Pretty cool, right? Triplet strumming thing there. I think I'll do a lesson on how to do some triplet strumming. It's a cool technique I've looked at with Justin King music and a lot of Brazilian music too. It's really fun. So you have that shape, right? You have your E shape now. So what else can be brought to attention now? C, A, G, E, D. All right. Where's your D chord? Right here. And if you notice something here, go to your C chord. You take this shape, looking at your last bottom 3 strings, and to get to D, D is a whole step above C. You are moving that shape up, all right, to the 2nd fret now, and then 3rd fret, 2nd string, 2nd fret, 3rd and 1st string, 3rd fret, 2nd string. So you take your C chord right there, bottom 3 strings. You have your 1, 3, 5 in this. You have a 5, G is a 5 in the C chord. You have your C note, the 1, and then the 3, the E note. And you're playing 5, 1, 3, now in the key of D, the D chord. So likewise, you can take your C chord and you can play up here, but now you have to play D with the last 3 fingers and bring it up to 12th fret, okay? Kind of like how you play your C chord. But to play the D shape, where you have a D in the bass, bring a C in the bass, you have to go from 12 to 10, all right? This is a really cool shape I like to play as a lead electric guitarist, especially if I'm playing like a G chord right here. A lot of cool modifications you can do with this shape, right? So, what's typical though, is you'll notice I'll play a lot of the times the actual C shape. The C and D shape are building off each other, okay? Pretty neat. Because as we look into minor shapes next, this is all the major chords, we'll discover how a lot of, we have like an A minor, E minor, and a D minor shape. And they're going to be using the C and G as well. They're going to be overlapping a little bit. And I'll explain that in another video, so stay tuned for that. Thank you guys for watching. I hope you got something out of this. It just goes over the basics of the CAGED system. And from there, we're going to start building upon how we can create different chord voicings, shell voicings, how we can use spread out voicings, how we can create some melodies, modifications, to make some really creative, pretty music, right? Because that's the goal at the end of the day. But we're building upon this simple structure that is going to lay the blueprint for you understanding your fretboard more and more. So I have a course on this called Guitar Shapes. I would love for you guys to check that out, where I go into detail on a lot of topics for getting started. It's targeted for a lot of beginners and lower intermediate students. Even if you are an intermediate player and feel a little bit like you lack a little bit of knowledge in these shapes, the foundation, then I encourage you to enroll in this course for a good sale price. And then, of course, I'm a fingerstyle guitarist primarily. I have a course on that called Fingerstyle Techniques. I'd love for you to check that out too. Thank you guys for watching. Be sure to leave a comment on what you would like the next lesson to be on, and I'll see you soon.